Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something you see every day but probably never think about. It's the invisible architecture that builds a nation, not out of concrete and steel, but out of rules, regulations, and records. It's the hidden operating system that turns a big idea into a reality. You know, when you're driving on a new highway or see a hospital going up, you're just seeing the final product. But underneath it all is this incredibly complex system. In this explainer, we're going to peel back those layers and show you the intricate rules that decide how these public projects get built and, just as importantly, how the people who build them are protected. So where does a billion-dollar project even start? Well, it's not with a bulldozer or a shovel. Nope, it starts with a pen, with a whole lot of paperwork and a super rigorous multi-stage approval process that turns a simple idea into a solid, funded plan. Yeah, you can think of it like meeting 3 green lights before you can even start the engine. First up, you've got to get administrative approval. That's basically the department saying, yep, we need this thing. Then green light number 2, expenditure sanction. The money people, the finance department, have to confirm, okay, the cash is actually there for it. And finally, you need the technical sanction. This is where the engineers step in and guarantee the plan is solid, it's safe, and we're not just throwing money away. Only when you get all 3 of those green lights does a project actually, officially get the go-ahead. Okay. So the project's approved. Now we can finally head to the construction site. And believe me, this is where things get really meticulous. Every single rupee spent has to be tracked, and it's all done through 2 super important essential record books. They're pretty much the legal backbone of the whole operation. And this is where the system is kind of brilliant, actually. It neatly separates the what from the who. On one hand, you have the measurement book, the MB. This is all about the what. It tracks all the materials, the supplies from contractors, all the work they do. But then you have the muster roll. This one's all about the who, the daily wage laborers the department hires directly. It's their attendance sheet and their payroll, all rolled into one. And I really can't stress this enough. That measurement book, it is a huge deal. It's way more than just some internal log. It's a hardcore legal document. Every single entry has to be made right there on site, and it has to be in ink. No crossing things out, no erasing. Why? Because if there's ever a legal fight with a contractor, this book becomes the key piece of evidence in court. It is the absolute foundation of the whole project's finances. All right, so we've talked about the money, the bricks, the mortar, but what about the people, the actual human beings building these incredible projects? Well, there's a whole other rulebook for them, an equally powerful set of laws designed to make sure they're safe, paid fairly, and treated justly. And this protection didn't just happen overnight. You can see on this timeline how this legal safety net was built up over a century. It started way back in 1923 with the Workmen's Compensation Act, a real game changer for accidents. Then, after independence, came the Industrial Disputes Act to handle conflicts, and a year later, the Minimum Wages Act to make sure people were paid a fair baseline. You can really think of these 3 as the legs of a stool, holding up worker protection. Okay, now you've got to hear this, because the Compensation Act brought in a concept that was absolutely revolutionary for its time: strict liability. So what does that mean? It means if a worker gets hurt on the job, the employer has to pay compensation. Full stop. It doesn't matter whose fault it was. The point isn't to play the blame game. The point is to get money into the hands of the injured worker or their family fast. And we're not talking about a token amount of money here. This is real, substantial support. For example, in the absolute worst-case scenario, if a worker dies, the Act says their family must receive a minimum compensation of 1,20,000 rupees. That's a vital financial cushion at the most difficult time imaginable. So the project is finally built, the workers are paid, they're protected by the law. But who checks the checkers? Who goes back and makes sure every single rule was followed and all that money was spent correctly? Well, that's a job for the ultimate financial watchdog. And that watchdog is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, usually just called the CAG. This isn't just some government department. It's an independent body written right into the Constitution. You can think of the CAG as the nation's top accountant, the one person whose job it is to follow the money and report back to Parliament to make sure our tax money is being spent the way it's supposed to be. Now, the KG doesn't just go in and audit anybody. Their power to investigate gets switched on when an organization is what they call substantially financed by the government. And that's not some fuzzy, vague term. It's a very clear 2-part test. You see it here. First, the government grant has to be at least 25 lakh rupees. And second, that grant has to make up 75% or more of that organization's total spending. If both of those boxes are ticked, the KAG can and will come knocking. So, let's take a step back and look at the big picture. What have we really seen here? We've basically got two parallel rulebooks, right? One for the money and the materials, and another one for the people, for the workers. But here's the key. They don't run on separate tracks. They're designed to connect, to overlap, and to reinforce each other. It's all one big system of accountability. And this slide right here is where it all clicks into place. Look at this. The contracts themselves legally force contractors to follow all those labor laws we talked about. And if a contractor doesn't pay compensation to an injured worker, well, the department can just hold back their payment. See the leverage? And remember that muster roll? That's not just an attendance sheet, it's the tool that makes sure everyone is getting paid according to the Minimum Wages Act. The whole system is built to use financial power to ensure social good. So on paper, we have this amazing, incredibly detailed system. A whole web of approvals, record books, laws, and audits, all built to keep things transparent and accountable. But, and it's a big but, how well does it all hold up in the real world with all its pressures and complexities? Well, that's a question for another day. But for now, you know the secret. You've seen the invisible rulebook that literally builds India.